So this is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Axa Yox. And how you doing tonight?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for hosting me. I'm doing fine. Great even. How about you?
Good. So we're going to talk about one of the topics we're going to talk about is innovative techniques on how to rewire old habits, and that's what we're going to focus on. But before we get into your story, one of the things we want to talk about, or we ask any guest on the show, is what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Oh, that's very interesting question because I was in science for over 15 years and I was very successful. I did 12 inventions and then I thought that I'm ready for the regular life, normal life out of academia. So I launched my company and I failed very bad. I was
Mm,
going through the darkness also with the family, some losses and my personal trauma, and I was in such a dark space that I needed to let the past go and I couldn't. I was so stuck in my spot. I started to watch the motivational videos, checking the literature, and I couldn't find that nudge, like to let the past go.
mm,
And it was fascinating for me how it can even happen that let go, which is so effective for everyone, nearly everyone. It was so insufficient for me. I was like, am I that special? I just realized that there should be the reason that 80% of the population have the same issue. That's how I started to unravel and to dig into the our psychology to figure out what's the reason. It took me 3 years of deep analysis and it took me 1 second to let it go. That was amazing, but it took me 3 years of deep analysis what I needed to let go, how to rewire the links that we have in our brain to find that force and let it go.
Well, I think a lot of times it's very hard to when you have dreams and then they don't come true, or when you're working on something so hard, as an artist, like I'm a musician, a lot of times like the first thing you write doesn't work. Like a lot of times we do a lot of takes, and we have a lot of demos. You could have like 80 to 100 versions of something, and then it doesn't work until you reach like the version 100, right? Or it could work at version 4. You just don't know. And so over time, it's like, do you give up because it didn't work, or do you kind of roll with the punches because you can't make a cake without breaking some eggs, right? So the whole idea in the arts is like a lot of times like a lot of what you do is not going to work, but
Absolutely.
it's not like in value. It's not wasted time because it's like the 10,000 hours it took to build up your skill set. Well, part of those 10,000 hours are the happy accidents or the things that didn't work out. But as an inventor, as like a scientist, like things like you go through multiple iterations, and sometimes things don't work or things fail, and then you got to try something else. But it's hard to kind of deal with the vulnerability of that. Like people want to feel safe, and if you don't win, then you don't feel safe.
But you have two options. Either you kind of win and you win your safety, or you win in life. That's your choice. Every person decides whether they prefer to try, fail, tweak something, try something next, like um, find out what works for you. Because what works for me, even if I give you the best advice, which worked for me, it might 100% never work for other person because you have different perspective, you have different tolerance even for the failure or the innovations. Anything that you build your habits over for the decades, that's the level that will determine where you would be even tomorrow. And the fail fast is one of the best advices and the recommendations which exist in on the internet. I learned not to work for me as failing fast, it's not how it's supposed. You have to decode the message. For me, it was not fail fast and then just continue. Fail fast and learn what was the cause that you failed. And if
Yeah, that's
something
important.
doesn't work, just don't keep failing fast again and again. It makes little sense. Learn what is the initial state that you don't have, what is the piece of the puzzle that you are missing on, that you need to complete the picture. Otherwise, you will just keep failing fast again and again. That makes
Yeah.
no
And what
sense.
you it's like, what happens if you keep on repeating the same thing?
Yep.
It's kind of definition of X, the idea is like lessons learned. I'm in software design. That's my day job.
Oh, nice.
And we do like, we used to use waterfall for like mainframes, but now we're in the agile kind of mindset and we do a lot of iterative development. And basically is like these iterative development means that we can actually push something out and that whatever we don't know today that we learn tomorrow will push the change out. So, like, if you see on an iPhone, these updates happening continually to the software, to the apps, because like what we didn't know yesterday, now we know, and
But
we
you don't
push
call
it
it
out.
as a failure, right? You
No,
had the initial version and then you just keep improving. The same is the life.
yeah, I think it's the idea that like the idea that the old school was like the waterfall method where we had to know everything, and we had to put in like this 200-page document. We had to know all, and then it would take like years to actually put another version out. So we were always trying to get it right. That was mostly like mainframe development, COBOL stuff, and that stuff. It was just mind numbing. It was hard to deal with because like you can't get it right 100%. And so it was like,
It-
well,
what's right today might be not right tomorrow. So that the life is moving all the time. It's not stagnant. Stagnant is only when you are out of
yeah,
life, which
when
we
you're not
prefer
here,
not to
yeah,
be, right?
yeah.
Not as
But
as fast
you
as
keep,
it's possible.
well, you can keep on improving till you're not here. Like if you think about it, like blues musicians are not
Mhm.
known for like giving up when they're like 80 years old. They're still playing until they're not here. But like pop musicians tend to like they have an expiration date to tend to be young, right? And then
Yeah.
they tend to, you get some that have been around a long time, but the idea is like it's like a young person's game. But there are some musical genres where, jazz and blues, you could keep on playing in New Orleans or Mississippi Delta until you're not here because you
you
still
have
have
to
something
keep you
to
have
say.
to keep your heart young and the mind young.
Yeah.
Whenever you have that young, then you will have the different level of expert, like you will experience different level of life every single day. We have the option every single day to write a different story. And if you are stuck somewhere and if you keep repeating, and by the way, that's something that I love to mention as well. Do you try to make it perfect, or you are just creating the fancy word for procrastination? Because in many cases, whenever you are trying to make the things perfect, is simply because you are procrastinating, but you cannot admit to yourself that you procrastinate. So you create all these layers, which I am trying to be perfect. No, you have to understand, if something doesn't work and you improve, that's different story
Perfect.
versus if you are trying to make it perfect, which simply impossible to achieve, and you just postpone your execution every single day, then another week, another month, because we are nearly at the end of the year. So are you going to end up the year with the same list of the dreams and the plans that you had in the very beginning, and you just transfer from one year to another? So if that's the pattern that you go through, then you have to stop and really ask yourself that very honest question: am I trying to make it perfect, or I just procrastinate? It will help you, because the truth set you free, and that's so true. Even if it is the harsh truth, once you admit, you have the ability to break the pattern and to succeed. Otherwise, you will stay in that cycle, trying to make it perfect, but just simply procrastinating. What's
Yeah.
your purpose?
It's like a musician that, they keep on working on the same track for 6 months versus somebody who just puts it out on SoundCloud and just puts it out, and, it gets the immediate feedback because there's the idea
I
of, like, the
love
law of
that.
attraction.
Yes.
There's a lot,
Yeah.
it's like as if I've seen painters that go to their loft, like 100 paintings in the loft, and said, "Did you put any of these in the gallery?" "I'm not ready." Well, you look at what's in their loft, it's like, it looks like it's ready to me, but
Yeah.
they don't believe it. It's like imposter syndrome. They don't believe it's ready. So it's just sitting and the world hasn't seen it at all. And there's a lot of artists that get stuck with that because they're trying to find the perfect, you know, the perfect painting. But I think the idea of it is like the happy accident. In the arts, there's a lot of examples of things that weren't, you know, in the canon.
Mhm.
They were different. So they were outliers. And so people would immediately say, well, I don't know what this is. Like Picasso. It's like, well, what is that? What are you trying to do? And then it's like the idea that you put it out in the world, yeah, you might get some criticism, but then you create a whole new genre. So the idea of
But
like being able
how,
to put it out
yeah.
there is
But
like,
how many artists became famous while they lived?
well, they did.
Before, we didn't have that, because before there was no internet to put out your work and then get the assessment. And that's one of the best things that you can do, even to ask for the feedback. If you really afraid, like you have that fear of failure, and you can put out your work and ask for the feedback. Mention that you are in between to improve it. You need some expertise to give the feedback, the testimonial, blah blah blah. Ask for the help, because then you have the direction, even for the to improve something, or when you are trying to make it perfect. What's your direction? If yourself in your mind you go the same cycle again and again, you create the perfection over your yesterday perfection. So you don't have the feedback, like what is the comparison, what do you compare with? So the chances that you will end somewhere with making it really perfect, which nearly doesn't exist,
Yeah,
lower, versus if you make it perfect for your audience. Make it perfect for your audience, because the chances that whatever you created, and again, you compare tomorrow's perfect to your yesterday perfect. You don't
yeah,
have any other examples on the table. Does it make sense?
yeah.
Not always.
No. Well, a lot of times, like if you're doing something that's like what they call a newfound sound, right?
Yeah.
Versus like a found sound. Well, there's not gonna be a lot of examples of what it is. An example of that is like Jimi Hendrix. Jimi
Mhm.
Hendrix kind of revolutionized the guitar. So what he
Yeah.
did with the guitar sonically, people hadn't heard before. So some people's immediate impression was, recording engineers, they heard the feedback, they said, "Well, that's not even supposed to be on the record." So they tried to edit it out, and then they heard the weird noises, said, "Well, that's not supposed to be on the record." They tried to edit it out. So he had to fight to keep the sound that he heard in his head, and he put on it through his strings. He'd keep it on the record because then, like, he had a vision, and then not everybody has that vision to be willing to push the envelope. So sometimes it's like hard to know if what's perfect because people will say that it's wrong because like they're in the canon. So that this is what a perfect, a 5 octave voice is. And then you run into a guy like Lou Reed or Bob Dylan, and
Yeah.
they don't have that voice. So are you supposed to? They don't sound like Sinatra. They don't sound like Nat King Cole. So then the idea is like, well, can that person actually be put out into the marketplace? Well, somebody took a chance and said, "Yeah, Bob Dylan can be put in the marketplace." But that's
Yeah.
that's a hard decision because 'cause you're not gonna find anybody else that even sounds like him today. It's like
But there are so many people who love them the most, and they consider that to be perfect for themselves, because the perfection is whatever you find to be different. For me, perfection is when it's different, because I love when it's not blended, it stands out.
Mhm.
That's the perfection for me. Versus for the other person, it could be when everything is the same. That's the perfection because nothing stands out.
Yeah.
Every person has different
Yeah, but
perspectives.
that's what some people listen like atmospheric music, and they go to bed with, like, listening to, like, the ocean, or they like
Yeah,
background, like, they like, ambient music, because it's like, the purpose is it's not supposed to stand out, it's supposed to relax them. So if people use
true.
music in that kind of way, then they're not gonna want something that's clashing or something they gotta really listen to closely. So then they're but it's like the law of attraction. My whole point a lot of times with art or anything you do, whether you're a public speaker, you come out and you give your lecture, right? Like what you say is like it's uniquely your vision, your voice.
Yes.
And you could try to be like Tony Robbins, but like there's already a Tony Robbins. So it's like, people already heard what he has to say. It's like they want to hear what you have to say. And so if you put it out there, like you could have a style, you could have been influenced by Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
but it's like your voice is what your secret sauce, your secret ingredient is you.
Why I have to listen to you if you say the same than Tony Robbins says? Because he already won that respect, the rapport. We go because we know who he is. If you are telling me the same, you just rephrase. Why should I listen to you? Give me different, even with your life experience. If you tell me this is how listening to Tony Robbins helped me, listening to whoever you are listening to helped me change my life, influenced me, and you can do the same, then I will listen to you. Otherwise, there is no meaning for the difference. For me, the perfection when something stands out, when it's not blended, when I can see the spot and that's my focus where it goes and it change everything in me. But for other person, it's relaxing. They don't want to stand out. They prefer to blend in. You choose your perfection. You choose your heart. You choose your choice.
Mhm.
Even if you put that way, you choose your failure as well because we fail in life every single day. Sometimes if you choose to stay safe, you fail on success. I choose to fail while succeeding. That's my choice of the failure. Whenever you stay in the safety net, you still fail.
You made a
That's the
choice.
misconception that
Yeah.
people have because you, in my opinion, you fail to succeed. In your opinion, I fail to stay safe. Every person, there is always dilemma. You always choose something.
Yeah, well, I think that, like, life is going to be this kind of it's not always the happy medium. Like people are
Mhm.
always trying to find balance. But in life, every day you're gonna be on the scale, like, where you're somewhat out of balance. Because like, the idea of, like, your comfort zone, well, people who are very creative go into, like, this uncomfortable position because they stretch. Because there's an example where David Bowie had this, statement where he said he didn't feel comfortable as an artist unless he was kinda treading water a little bit,
You
like, where
see?
he's not drowning, but
Yep.
doing something that was not his thing, like, not his expertise. Because he
Hmm.
went from doing this character, Ziggy Stardust, as, like, this rock star, right? Then he went and shifted into, like, R&B soul and was singing with Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross actually had a better voice than he did.
Hmm.
Actually was in a totally different genre. He was doing rock and then he went into soul. He was not comfortable with the soul, but he wanted to stretch. So he pushed himself into a zone that wasn't his expertise, but then he succeeded because he the passion about going into something that you're not the best at, then I think what happens is, like, you experiment. You find your voice. It's not the same as Luther, but it's your voice. He found a way to sing the R&B, and then people liked it because he found a way to stretch. And I think that's where when you stretch out, it can be uncomfortable at first, but then is this part of life. Like sometimes you can't be in the comfort zone all day.
I believe the misconception for many people and the cause for the stress is when they are trying to compare themselves with somebody else and they don't see the progress. The perfection, or whenever you are trying or tending to be, is when you perfect over yourself every single day. That's the perfection that you have to achieve. Otherwise you would be all the time stressed. I'm not like somebody else. I'm not like Tony Robbins. I'm not like Mel Robbins. I'm not like this. I'm not. You can never be anybody but your better version, the better version of yourself. And that's where you can succeed. For me, I had this imbalance issue for many years before I found what does it mean to be balanced. The balance for me, that's my definition. It might not meet any other person expectation 100%, but for me the balance is when you are 100% present at what you do.
Mhm.
That's the only way that you balance, whether you are doing 80% of the time you work and only 20% is the personal, whatever you prefer to do. But when you are present 80% at work and you are focused on one task that you have to perform at that point, that's the balance for me. And I spent many years to find out where is my balance.
Mhm.
Because you are disbalanced and you are on the scale and you bet all the time which one I have to choose. Do I go for the health? Do I go for the gym? Do I go for the work? Do what Where is your balance? And then you cause only simply more and more stress because you are trying to be perfect with balancing something which initially is impossible. So once you find out where is your focus, where is your balance, and what makes you to feel that inner peace, that's what you have to do.
Well, it's possible to rewire your brain and like change your old habits, where a lot of people
Yeah.
probably might feel like they're locked in, but you can find that you can actually, kind of reinvent yourself. It's a mindset. Like if you don't believe that you can do X, then you're going to be stuck in that loop. But once you start to see the possibilities, like, well, you're the one stopping yourself, right? There's not anybody else other than you that thinks it's impossible. Somebody might have told you
It's
that, but
your
really it's
old,
like
yes,
your own belief that's doing it.
old beliefs, old habits, and we unfortunately, sadly, we there is a misconception that we think that we do the different things, but we do the same thing with the different masks. So if you go for the, let's say, if you go for the social meetings and they are not serving you, even if you meet different people, you do the same activity. Then
Mhm.
you cut that activity, you do something else. So the focus is not to do the new thing. The focus supposed to be what is the outcome, what you are trying to reach with the activities that you do. That's the rewire. That's the base how you rewire. Because if you keep the same habit to procrastinate, procrastination is the habit as well. It's not you, it's you simply avoid to do the work. You don't try to make it perfect, you are trying to avoid to do the hard work. Or you are in the this loop that you are scared to fail. That's what the tendency to make it perfect is. If you are scared to fail, if you are avoiding to do the hard work, so you use this very fancy word, I'm trying to make it perfect. Once you admit to yourself, oh wow, okay, that's the habit of procrastination, it's not actually I'm trying to make it perfect, then you have the chance to break it. But to make it a little bit clear with the comfort zone, whenever you say or you call the zone where you are unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled to be a comfort zone, you really signal to your brain that you are comfortable to be unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled. When your brain has that level for the connection and the links between the subconscious and the conscious, it will sabotage yourself because you initially put that standard that you are comfortable to be unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled. You have to flip and you have to make the zone where you are unhappy to be uncomfortable, not comfortable. Then you will run away from there and you will never even wish to be back. That's what you have to flip. It's not to be comfortable to be uncomfortable, it's to be uncomfortable to be comfortable, because then your brain starts to decode the information without the conflict
Mhm.
between the subconscious and the conscious, because we live 80% of the time in our subconscious, otherwise we don't have so much energy. The nature designed us to save our life. So 80% of the somatic and the auto thinking and the function that exists in our body is controlled to preserve the energy. Whatever the body does is to preserve the energy, because you never, the nature didn't create us to have the abundance of food. The nature designed us to have to fight for the food, to hunt the food. But because we flip that at the moment and we have the abundance of the food, our body still was not designed to have it. And now it creates different problems that we need to solve, because we don't have the real initial problems that the nature created for us.
Survival
But
mode.
the real problems, yes, true, that we don't need to survive, so we start to create something different, and we just pile up the layers which were built, by the way, since we were kids, and before we were even able to analyze the situation, to give the assumptions, or even to assess whether it's good for us, whether it's not supportive, because when you are a child you cannot assess that. But the memory starts to build up over and over and over again, and it's not the memory as the event. We need to remember that behind every memory there is an emotional trigger which changes your biochemistry, and that's what is the cause for the problems. Because if you have some emotional trigger which is under the 100 piles, and they completely are interchangeable and interconnected, and they create your old habit, and you think that if you break one link, okay, you have this habit which is interconnected and interlinked with 100 layers, and you break one link and you think that you rewired your old habit. No, you have to rewire all 100 layers all together to completely disconnect from the old habit. That's how you rewire. And let's say you have two tanks, like the tank with the negative emotions and the tank with the positive emotions. People normally think, okay, I'll fill up the tank with the positivity and I will rewire, while they keep feeding the negative as well. To rewire and to restart and to build the sustaining new habits, you have to stop feeding the negative as well. Because if you feed both of them, they just grow exponentially and
Mhm.
together. You have to stop feeding this one, and then this one will create the balance forward for the positive, and then how you rewire. So that's the basic. You have to stop feeding the negative thoughts, and then you have to reinforce the positive.
Well, the negative self-talk can kind of be, on a loop, and it's hard to get rid of. Because like if you've had that negative self-talk that you're not good enough, you can't do it, that those things are still going on. If that voice is still saying that, and you're still building that tank full of all bad self-talk, and so that's gonna keep you from, it's kinda like if you're in a toxic workplace and you say, "Well, at least I get a paycheck." So, do you stay in the toxic
You
workplace with
see?
the toxic boss, and it's like, really, that's not good for you, but because you get the paycheck, you say, "Well, that's safe," because you don't know what's gonna happen if you go outside there. Am I still gonna get the paycheck? Or can I really do it? Because they're saying I'm not good enough, or I'm not getting good, so once you can get past the bad self-talk and believe, "I could do better. I should do better. I deserve to do better," you know,
I love that.
and
That's what, it's not what you have, it's what you are going to do with that. If, because a negative, so-called negative self-talk might be also you admit that you are not good enough for particular expertise. Yeah, so you don't stay in that loop, you just admit I'm not good here, so I need to do something about that. So if we keep only positive self-talk, are we progressing? If you need to change something in your life and you say, oh no, I'm good enough, I'm perfect enough, and it's not serving as well. So the negative, whatever you do, has to serve to the purpose. If you
mhm,
want, let's say you want to lose weight, if you keep telling to yourself positively, no, I'm good enough, I'm perfect,
yeah,
I
then
am,
you'll never lose
I
weight.
deserve, do you serve yourself? No, you don't.
Yeah,
Because eating unhealthy, not very good for you, you are not good enough with the exercises, you have to really put your energy to change your diet, to shift your mindset. It's not what you have, it's what you do with that. You
yeah,
might
it's an
be
action.
perfectly on the track to change, even with the self negative talk like you are not good enough, but I'll change that. So that's the shift. It's
That's
not
the
that
shift.
I'm good enough, I'll, no, it's not I'm good enough or I am not good enough, it's what I'm doing in
What
the
are you gonna do
particular
about it? What are
situation.
you gonna do
Yes,
about
what you are going to do with that, what you are going to do with the deck of the cards that you have in your hands. You can play it perfectly, you can play it lame, and you can play it and learn how to play next time, even if you have the same deck of the cards. Because the perfection is over what, who you were yesterday and who you are going tending to become tomorrow or within 1 year. That's the perfection you have to focus on.
well, it seems like you have to be in a kind of mode where some people might not be willing to realize that every day is a learning opportunity. Like, every day
We
you
are on the
like,
learning
well,
curve.
I'm in software design, so we kinda know, like, exponentially, the tools are changing. The ideologies, the framework's changing. Like, the whole foundation of what we do, 'cause, like, compared to, like, in the '70s, it's, like, all mainframe. Then it's, like, server. Now then it was, like, it's blockchain. Now it's crypto. Now then it's, now it's AI. So the foundation changes, and we have to go and relearn. So it's not like we're throwing out the logic we've learned. Like, we can build. So you can't look at it as, well, now because I'm a COBOL guy, I can't do anything now. There's a lot of stuff you learned in terms of logical structure that you could apply to the new AI frameworks. So it doesn't mean that you can't go there, but you get some people say, "Well, no, I'm done because I'm a mainframe guy. I can't learn. No one wants me." But you can take what you've learned, and then you have to learn something new. You have to apply yourself. But if you have this mindset of, like, nobody wants me because I'm this,
Yes,
and
you
you're
have
stuck.
that. That's the most toxic thing. When you say that my life ends here because of this. I was in science for 15 years and I was very successful. And accidentally, I used my research mindset, which I had, because normally in science, you have to put all the literature together, analyze, and find out what was not covered, because that's how I made the inventions. And by the way, my first invention I did absolutely accidental, and I believe many from your audience will agree as well that the best things they find out accidentally.
A happy
So I
accident.
use absolutely right. So I used my experience, even though I was transitioning into business, into coaching and public speaking, but I used that and I found something which is not covered at the moment, even on the internet or public speaking, whatever you call it. And I'm going for the TEDx talk describing something which was not described by now. So if I would never have this experience as in academia, to put all together and to find out, okay, I have all this puzzle, all these pieces of the puzzle, what doesn't exist, I would never be able to find out. So it's not, again, it's not what you have, it's not about stop self sabotaging 100%. That's the only thing that I would say. Stop complaining because it doesn't help. That's the only reason to stop complaining.
Yeah, well, do
Actually,
something
because it
about it.
really
Yeah.
doesn't help.
Like, go and instead of saying like, I hate AI, well, maybe learn
Okay,
some
hate,
machine.
AI doesn't care.
It doesn't matter if you hate it. It's like, oh, it's taking
Yeah.
my job. It's like I'm not going to be able to work. I'm going to be done. It's like maybe go. Like I went and got certifications
Yeah.
on some of the AI, machine learning and stuff because I needed to. I work within financial stuff and insurance. I said, what if I apply all my business knowledge and learn what to do with these, like a prompt engineering and learn how to prompt engineer using these new tools. Well,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things you can do, and it opened up opportunities. It opened up things where I knew a lot of artists I was talking to because I'm in the art community. Like it's like I'm never going to use that because they're just totally against it. And I understand there's reasons why they might be against it. They feel it's like stealing their work, and so then they don't even want to look at it at all. But if you have such a narrow framework, you might miss an opportunity to
Yes.
actually utilize something like there's nothing like always 100% one way or the other. And so if you have to have kind of keep an open mind
Yeah.
to advance because if you
To
already
your
have
advantage.
yeah, take advantage of what's in the
Yeah.
world and don't kind of have these prejudgments that actually kind of they hold you back.
Yeah, I like this saying. Literally, whenever you fail, don't fail to learn the lesson, and that's very important because when I moved to live to the in the US, in the very beginning, obviously you need to work, and I was laid off, like I was fired for literally giving the business owner extremely good idea how to make the profit, how to 10x their profit within just only 1 week using my idea. They got the revenue which they generated previously in 3 months, and they let me go because I asked for the percentage for my own idea.
Yeah, but they
But
don't want to do
it
that.
was it was extremely unfair. But this is one thing that I want to mention about the life unfairness. It's going to be very hard, but life is unfair, accepted. I disagree with that. Why? Because we complain about life being unfair only when it's unfair, it's not playing in our favor. If it plays in our favor, we would never say, oh, life is so unfair to somebody. We would sit there and we would admit, no, we worked hard for that. Imagine you studied the subject perfectly for 1 month. You didn't sleep like the whole night or the half. You went to the exam, you got the A, and somebody who didn't study at all went for all the parties, did all the funny things, came in the morning, and the professor would be like, today is the life is very fair, and I will assess everyone gets the A grade. You are not going to be happy with that. So whatever is unfair for you, you have the chance to take the unfair advantage there, because life doesn't blend everyone. You can stand out. That's your unfair advantage. Use it in your favor. Don't blend into the mess, into the gray mess, and say life is unfair. Life doesn't care whether you accept it's unfair, fair, doesn't matter. Use it. When I was fired, I learned the lesson how, when I would have the business, protect the A player. And now I consult the business owners. So I I had the option to sit there to pity myself that, oh, stupid bot, blah, 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 right? Whatever we do, that self pity talk that we keep in our mind, like, oh, pity me, pity me. Okay, you don't, it doesn't serve you. Learn when you fail, don't fail to learn the lesson. I learned the lesson. Now I am wiser and I use that as unfair advantage because not many people know the nuances that happened when I was working with them, to see the tiny difference and the feature that the A player has, and how to stand them out, how to point them, how to focus on them, and how to help them, and to share the ideas in the safe environment where I can benefit as a business owner. Because I'm going to have the same issue as well. I'm going to have the A players who might be sabotaged by some middle link managers who would prefer to have the promotion, blah, 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 everything that happens in many companies. How to spot the A player, how to protect them so they don't leave. I
Mhm.
learned that from my own experience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I
Likewise.
failed, I didn't fail to learn the lesson.
Well, you can take those. It's like anything that happens. It's like, you don't want a ship captain that's never gone through a storm. It's like, or how are they going to navigate in the ocean when there are storms in the Atlantic, they're in the Pacific. Like,
Yeah.
so if they've never gone through a storm, how are they going to navigate? It's like you have
Yeah.
to have lessons learned to be able to. I mean, that's life. Life is going to be. It's not always going to be peachy. It's not always going to be like you're going to learn the most from actually the things, as you you know experience the world. If you travel, you're going to learn different cultures, you're going to learn different perspectives, you're going to learn different ways of looking at things. The more opportunity you have to be expansive, or the more opportunity you to have to see different options and not only
Yes.
one way to do something. If you see multiple ways to do things, if you
Yes.
see different cultures and how different cultures react to words, react to
Yeah.
language, react to body language, the more
Mhm.
opportunities you have, then it's just like you just build this like library
Resilience.
of all this
Yeah.
capability that then now it's like the athlete that do the 10,000 hours to get that 3-point shot. But they
Yep.
did it so they can get it at different angles, at different situations, under different pressure. So it's automatic because you have to learn from like not hitting the target to hitting the target. You got to do the work.
Yeah, it didn't work. And why it didn't work? Yes. And that's the adaptation, which is in as the base for the technique that I kind of invented. Because whenever you need to rewire the links that are coming and they were built during the decades when we were growing up, you have to unlink and you have to raise your tolerance, because more downs you go, like, that's something that I learned from my own experience as well. When I hit the rock bottom for the first time, the first, your instinct is just to erase, like to go, like emerge from there, because you don't want to stay at the rock bottom. But the first attempt, I hit rock bottom again. I hit again, again, and every single time when you hit, it's really painful. So
Mhm.
the next time, I believe the 10th time when I hit, I realized I'm doing something wrong, because otherwise you would not hit the same rock bottom, right? I failed and I didn't learn the lesson. So the next time I decided to stay there for longer and to learn what I do wrong. Because
Mhm.
otherwise I knew that I'm going to hit. And more you hit, at certain point you can really give up. So it sometimes it doesn't make really sense to not give up like in serious points. I mean, like, you can decide that being entrepreneur or being business owner or safety is better for you. You can decide on taking the easier path versus to take the risk and to progress and to succeed. So every failure has a treasure. Every failure has the opportunity to grow, to become better, because you extend your comfort zone. Call it comfort zone, call it uncomfort zone, whatever you call it, whatever you name it. Don't stay linked to something which doesn't serve you.
Mhm.
Always, whatever happens, ask yourself, even if the lesson serves you for the better, take the lesson, learn the lesson, and say, okay, life was unfair, but I will make that unfairness, injustice, to be my unfair advantage. And that's 100% your choice. You can always make up with whatever happened and continue, go for more. Teach the lesson that you learned to somebody who is behind you and they want to avoid the lesson. You always have something in your hands which somehow we are so conditioned that if we fail, we are a failure, no one loves us, we are not enough, we are not good enough, whatever, and the blank you fill in. um, Stop the negative self-talk which doesn't serve you, but flip it to serve you. You are not good enough, okay, change that.
Well, yeah,
You
if
are,
you look at yeah, if
change
you
that.
well, if you look at where you're like, you might be weak, right? Like, you might have
Yeah.
failed, like, have an honest assessment, kind of the idea,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
poets had this idea of the looking glass self, which
Yeah.
kinda is like you look in that mirror and you
Mhm.
actually have an honest assessment. It's like, "You know what? I could learn how to write better. I could learn how to do critical thinking better. I could learn how to do, oral presentations better. I could learn how to read the room better. I could learn how to do so there's things I could improve so that maybe I need to do some classes, or I need to get some coaching, or I need to actually look at like what my hangups are. So maybe I need a therapist to kind of work through something. So it's not that just it's like, oh, I failed. And then if you just fail and you change your environment, but you keep on doing the same thing, it's not the environment. Like every environment you go to, you keep on doing the same thing. So it's you.
You
So
choose the environment where which tolerates what you do. It's not the environment. We choose our environment. If you go to somewhere where are only like the really high achievers and you are not progressing at all, you cannot, they will never tolerate you, they will exclude you. So we choose the environment which will tolerate ourselves. That's something. Every time when you choose the environment, choose something whom you want to become, not somebody who can drag you down, but somebody who will push you.
lift you, yeah. When
Yes,
and
who
when there's
will
an
lift you.
opportunity, yeah, because I
Yes.
mean, I worked with like Fortune 500 companies for a long time, and now I've been working with smaller companies, smaller businesses, and what I found is there's more opportunity for me to be able to ramp up. Like, so
Yeah.
sometimes I could be, in an architect role, sometimes I could be in a design role, sometimes I could be in a business analyst role, sometimes I could be in a technical role. So with like in a startup type of environment, they like the fact that you have a lot of capabilities to kind of shift on the fly, to ramp up to whatever you want to be. Where in the other environment, they were looking at like, I need you to be this, right? And just be that. And then you could, and then I was always hitting the wall. But now I found a place where I found my tribe where it works. And
Perfect.
over time, it's like you figure out how to merge. Like, can I do creative stuff with like the podcast and music? And then I do technical stuff. I found left and right brain. I found places that like creative minds that
Yes.
like. So like if you're in a place where if you put up ideas and nobody ever listens to them, that you when you try to solicit like improvements and nobody ever takes them, then you kind of realize it's like, well, this place is not really aligned to me.
Not for everyone.
Yeah, it's not it's like if you find that you're not in alignment, it's not working. Right. So you got to find that
Angie.
alignment
Yeah.
where there's an opportunity for your voice to be heard. If your voice isn't being heard, that's kind of like a clue. Like if you're willing to voice something out and then it's not being heard, then you need to figure out like where it can be heard.
If you want your voice to be heard, so every person decide. Again, some people is perfect when they blend in and they don't stand out. For some people, if everything is the same, I don't like that. So you choose your perfection, you choose your heart, you choose your failure, you choose everything. And once you choose what serves you. If you prefer to not behind, but still not to stand out, choose the environment which can where you can blend in, align with the environment, and be perfect. Because there is nothing better than you feel your full potential, whatever your potential is. Not every person wants to be a leader, and
You have
that's
to be in tune.
fine.
You
And
can be
that's
in tune.
fine.
Yeah, it's like there's not
Yeah,
everybody's gonna be like the conductor. They if you got your
sure.
orchestra, like you got a bunch of clarinets. They're all second clarinets, or they're
Yeah.
all third violins. Well, there's that's that group. That's where you are. It's like well, you're not the cello player. You're the second violin, right?
But
It's like
there is no concert without the second violin as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
The concert cannot be only with the first violin, the first clarinet. No, it's
That's the only
always those layers that make it complete. And
yeah.
that's the
You might be
beauty.
comfortable just being in like a second violin that has the opportunity to play the pieces you want to play.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you're in an environment where you get to play the pieces you want, you get to go on the stages you want, you don't need to go outside and be the lead violinist, right? Like you want to be part of that orchestra that's in the people who are building up the sound where they're on the same note in the same key and are in sync. Like it's like
Mhm.
that's your role and you feel comfortable. You want to be able to have the opportunity to be in that role. So
Yeah.
that's like, but that's not it's like so everybody kind of finds like the frequency they need to be on and where they need so they can be in tune. And when you're like in a place where it's discordant and noisy, and it's like, well, you're then you kind of know, like, oh, I'm out of tune. I'm like, I'm not in sync with here. Then you know whether you want to be the lead or you want to be part of the whole. You just kind of have to know where you want to be. Like if you can't decide if you want to be the lead or you want to be the second clarinet, then you have to make a decision. Like which one are you going to be?
You are, by the way, lucky if you have the choice to decide whether you are the leader or you want to be led. Sometimes you don't have that option. Sometimes it could happen that you are just cornered and you have to take what exists at that particular moment, even if you don't feel yourself that you have to lead. But people behind you need to be led. So you just adjust and adapt depending on the environment and the role. And you just need to make sometimes very quick decisions which benefit not only you but the environment where you are. Because if you always take from the environment and you never give, the environment is going to reject you as well.
Yeah, you'll be out
Whether
of
you
sync.
stand, yes, whether you stand out, or sometimes you stand out, sometimes the other person stands out. It's the balance which we spoke
Yeah,
before
it
as
can
well.
change, it can shift. It can
Yes.
shift, like,
Yeah.
nothing's ever permanent, and we're living in a very,
Yeah.
like people look at
Permanent.
the forest and they think it's the same, but when you start really looking at the forest, it's not the same. All the trees are different, they all have different there's, like but people want like the sameness of things,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of variation, and there's a lot of things that shift in nature, and people kinda like the sameness because they like the safety of it. But,
Hmm.
like, things shift, the environment changes, the things happen. It's like whatever was working 5 years ago, now it doesn't work. No, what was working,
Yeah.
like, 2 hours ago might not work, So it's like sometimes you have to be able to kinda shift to where it is, and,
Yeah.
that's hard if you're not in that kind of frame of mind where you've never had to shift, and then what do you do if you've not been in a place where you've had the opportunity to deal with the
Change
variation.
it. Change it, because life is very short. Life is very beautiful. Life is unjust, but again, you have to use that in your favor and create something which other people can benefit. And even if when everything is similar, there is always something which is different. And whenever everything is different, there is always something which is similar. So it's life is all about the balance, and whatever you focus on, you will find it. If you want to see the difference, you will find it. If you want to see everything similar, like we're all humans, you
Yeah.
will find that we are all, because with humans we can find so many similarities. We all live on the planet, we all drink water, we all eat food, we all breathe air. There are so many similarities, right? While whenever you ask people about the other individual, they would be like, they are so different. No, it's the angle that you look at. If you want to find the similarities, you will find them. You want to find the difference, you will find them. What is the purpose? You want to stand out, you want to stand out, you want to lift yourself and then help your environment to lift up as well, or you want to stand out and to show up and to show like, I am different, I am better than you are. What's your purpose? If that's what you want to do, the chances that the environment will reject you are higher, because people don't like that,
No,
though it
they don't
depends on the environment. But it's always better when you help your environment, because you feel completely different when you help somebody. And I have this mantra, I have that kind of the purpose per day. Do something good every single day, at least one good thing, not something which just came in like and you did a good choice. No, on purpose, do one good thing every single day.
purpose-filled
Yes,
life. Like, if you
on
have a purpose, yeah,
purpose.
yeah, if you
Yes,
have a
do
purpose-filled
one
life,
thing.
you think
Yeah,
about community, because a lot of people like individualism as part of, like,
yeah.
capitalism, and it kinda focuses on a lot of individualism to the point where, like, where's the community, right? So, like, it's like if you're always trying to have the one-upmanship where you're like, "I'm trying to be like, I wanted to keep up with the Joneses, and I wanna be better than Mr. Jones." It's
Mhm.
like, well, what if you wanna actually help Mr. Roberts or Mrs. Roberts? Like, what if you want to help somebody learn something so that they can learn how to do something? Like, you teach somebody how to fish versus just giving them the fish, right? That's going to make you feel better. And then it's actually going to help the world around you if you actually teach people how to be more independent or to how to actually participate or give a skill or tutor somebody or mentor somebody or provide like a new idea that's actually going to elevate mankind, like a new technology that's gonna help people, it's gonna solve a problem instead of creating a problem, you
Sometimes
know?
you need to create then to solve it.
Yeah,
Because that's also kind of the part of the progress.
yeah, well, sometimes it's gonna ruffle some feathers when you create something new. You might create a
Yeah.
new social problem. It solves another problem, but it causes a social problem. So,
Yeah.
like, it's a whole sociology and psychology of, like, human beings. It's like something that might be good for mankind might not actually be thought of as being good politically or socially, so you do it and
I
then become
bet.
resistant to it.
I bet. There is always this balance. What do you focus on? That's so true. When I heard this for the first time, I was like, that's that's so obvious. But you would be amazed how we are out of the focus for the daily tasks that we perform. And once you flip it, and that's the balance that I found. It's not about the balance between the like your own life, like the health and the work, is when you are present 100%, because you accomplish more. You feel that you are not shattered between the different tasks. And once you feel your complete presence, first of all, when there is a lesson to learn, if you feel that you are going to fail, you learn the lesson, you shift
Mhm.
it. Next time you do something different, you overperform over yourself who you were yesterday. if it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the perfection that you have to achieve, not to perfect whatever you do, perfect who you were yesterday and who you are going to become. Become a little bit better,
Yeah. It's
but
incremental.
admit to
Incremental.
yourself, do you procrastinate or you are searching for the perfection?
You can do incremental, wins, little wins, what they call sometimes like
You
if you
have
have like yeah, because instead of like sometimes people have such a grand plans, like then they don't hit the mark. Then it might keep them from wanting to do it. But if you can have incremental change to better yourself and better your community and better those around everything around you, then that's doable because you haven't put the bar so high that you can't hit it, you know?
yeah. But I would say from my own experience, I hope it will help somebody else. Um, you create the bigger picture when you don't know what you want in life. And
Mm,
that's really true. Before you find your passion, you create this bigger blended picture because you don't have that spot. But the moment you find your passion, when you align everything, you see the path so clear, you just exclude everything which you were distracted with before, and you follow the path. And then you start to document every single step and the achievement. But you create the bigger picture not because you don't, it's because you don't know what you want.
mhm. Well, something you have to
So
have
you
a
don't exclude. You don't
yeah,
exclude. You include everything because you are not sure what you would
yeah.
love.
You got the big picture is like a 50,000-foot level that you're trying to and then you gotta hone in on it as you get to be an expert. Like, once you get into, like, your passion, you're gonna get to be very familiar with it, and you're gonna, repetition, and you're gonna get
Yeah,
skills, and those skills are
yeah.
gonna refine it, and then you're gonna have an idea, and then you can do your TED Talk, and you got a concept, you've got your idea because you were able to flesh it out.
Yes. Yes. When once you find, everything becomes so clear. And lately I heard this phrase and I was like, that's very kind of sarcastic, but it's so true. The happiness is to be 1 meter above the ground every morning. And I was like, that's kind of
That's a good
not
place
very
to be.
optimistic. But then you realize we focus on the things which we cannot control, and we focus on the things which we can control, and we mix, and we absolutely are so distracted with the daily problems which are not going to go away because we live the life. And if you wake up in the morning and you don't have any distraction, then there is something wrong with you,
Yeah, it's always
obviously.
gotta be yeah, that's life. Life has distraction, but
Yes, life
we've
has noise.
we've got your website there, and we actually we always hit the hour mark faster than we ever expect, but, we have your axayox.com,
Mhm.
link, and so people click on that, what do they find there?
So the website is not ready at the moment because I completely shifted the focus,
Oh, you're
and
shifting
yeah,
focus.
I'm doing the public speaking. But I have the opt-in page with my book, so they can,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
they
they
can have
can,
that one. That one's
yes,
like
they can
like
have
your
that one.
Amazon
Yes.
page, I think. Yeah, so we can
Mm-hmm.
use that one.
Yeah.
So that will be fully clickable on the
Yes.
episode.
Absolutely. They can have the book. They can read the book, and I hope they will learn how to find what you need to let go, because the moment when you find, that's the when you change the life, that's the transformation that happens.
That's great. I'm glad that everybody, just be aware of you'll be able to fully click on this within the podcast description. We were just live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. In the podcast description, that link we have there below is fully clickable, and you'll be able to access that to be able to get to your book. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast. A lot of things we've talked about are very illuminating, and that's why we have guests come on to kind of tell their story and tell their perspective. And I think your perspective brings a lot of thought to people to
Mhm.
really digest what we've been talking about in the last hour. But thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks for hosting me. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.